All right, so I'm gonna give a quick tutorial on how to acid treat raw metal. This is brand new parts that are just raw cold rolled steel. And before we epoxy seal these, there's some stuff we need to do. So what you're gonna need is, I use this brand just from Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. What's really important is that it has phosphoric acid. It says somewhere on there. So you can get this at, your automotive supply stores or whatever, but yeah, this works just as well. You're going to want some gloves and some safety goggles, and you're going to want to mix it up. This one calls for 3-to-1 ratio with just regular water, and then I get a piece of Scotch-Brite. So let me get these goggles and gloves on, and I'll show you what's next. So basically all you have to do is just pour some on, and then use the Scotch-Brite like a brush, and just make sure to get it in all the corners. Just make sure to hit every little nook and cranny of this and get this acid everywhere you can. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, so I'm gonna finish this up and show you the result. All right, so I've given all these about 30 minutes, and I have a fan blowing on them so that it dries a little bit quicker, but you can see it's staining the metal. It's from the acid. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a hose and a bucket of soapy water and some fresh pieces of Scotch-Brite, and we're gonna scrub these things nice and clean. All right, so if it was cold or inside the shop, I probably would be blowing and drying this off. But being that it's out in the hot sun, it's kicking off pretty quick. You'll see it kind of has this goldish, bronze, rusty looking color. That's not actually rust. What it is the acid pulling the impurities out of the steel. So once this dry, we are going to want to take off that layer with a wire brush and sanding, but just don't get worried if it gets that rusty color, because it's supposed to do that. So yeah, I'll let this dry, and then we'll get on to the sanding step. So for this prep stage, there's a numerous amount of ways to go about it. For the big areas, I like to use something like this wire brush that's on a variable speed buffer. Or you can use a DA. This is a short throw. A long throw would probably be preferable, but either one will work. You could also take a Velcro buffing pad like this and put 80 grit sandpaper on the buffer and use it like that. I do prefer to use the wire wheel because it doesn't gum up. The acid crap on the surface tends to gum up paper pretty fast, so it's kind of nice that this saves you a lot of money, and you don't have to constantly be changing out paper. For the smaller areas, I like to use something like this, a littler wire wheel on a drill, or you can actually fold over some sticky paper onto itself and hand sand in the really tight corners. There's really no right or wrong way. You just want to scratch it up and give yourself a real nice adhesion surface for that epoxy. Oh, and both the DA paper and the sandpaper, hand sanding paper, 80 grit. I've used 120, I've used 80. They both work. It's more of a preference thing, but I'd say 80 to 120 is the range you're gonna wanna be at. 180 is probably gonna be too fine for steel. So, all right, let's get to it. All right, so here we are, all clean and dry. I'm gonna give you an example of all 5 of these methods. Starting with the buffer with the wire wheel. Now we got the buffer with 80 grit sandpaper. This is a DA sander with 80 grit. And for the tight corners and stuff, we got the wire wheel. Let's try it down here. And last but not least, we have just a regular piece of 80 grit sandpaper folded over on it. So all right, so obviously there's plenty of ways to go about it. You know, if you've got all these tools, if you've got all these resources like I do, play around, find what works best for you, which you like better. If you don't have a whole shop full of tools, run what you brung, figure it out. You know, there's no right way about it, as long as you get it nice and clean like this. So as you can see, I have this section of bedside completely cleaned and scratched. And from here, you're gonna wanna use, well, any solvent of your choice, but I've had good luck with 91% isopropyl alcohol for my final wipe down. And then a nice clean rag. And from there, you're gonna wanna put on your epoxy sealer. Not urethane sealer, not urethane high build, not polyester primer, urethane sealer, and nothing else. Now the question comes up, do you want to do your body work over the epoxy or under the epoxy? Well, that's a bit of a loaded question. Personally, on this, the customer wants these spot welds filled in. And I live in a very, very warm, dry climate here in southern Utah. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and spot putty these spot welds before the epoxy. But, you know, with that said, I also only work on one project at a time. I have a very high turnover rate. I'm not a collision shop that's going to have it sitting in the backyard or in the corner. you know, until there's a slow day to work on the big restoration project. I'm gonna be getting it done quick. And again, I'm in a very dry climate. If you're planning on doing the body work over an extended period of time, or you live, you know, back east or somewhere that's very damp, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just go ahead and epoxy seal this and then do your body work over the epoxy. Because that way you know that you know, your treatment of the metal isn't in vain. So that's the way I'm gonna go about it. And from there, I'm gonna let my epoxy flash off. And I do, with PPG or, you know, Shopline, or those, they seem to be a little bit thicker. I've had good luck with just doing one single coat of epoxy, but with this Akzo Nobel I'm using, it's a little more thin and runny. So what I've been liking to do is do a tack coat, just a really light dust tack coat, whatever you want to call it, letting that flash, and then going back over that and doing a medium wet coat. And from there, I'm gonna spot prime over my spot putty to fill these. And I might actually do a couple coats over the whole panel, but I'm yet to decide. I might just spot prime over my body work and then prep the primer like normal, and then scuff up the epoxy and seal this and shoot it. But that's yet to be determined. So anyways, yeah, I hope this helped. Feel free to leave comments if you have any questions. I'll try to get back to you. All right, thank you for watching. And remember, don't stress it too hard. Drink plenty of beer, and good luck with your project. Cheers.